Hello and welcome to our Genesis Monthly Expo. My name is Martin Sriba. I'm the Global Head of Sales and Revenue at Genesis, as well as your host for today's event. I am pleased to take you under the hood of the Genesis platform today as we explore how the low-code technology is revolutionizing financial markets and IT delivery. I'll be inviting various colleagues from our engineering team, as well as special guests to give you hands-on experience as how we can reduce time to market for new applications, as well as why various firms have partnered with Genesis to help them with the digital transformation journey. To introduce this month's Expo, I am pleased to be joined by our CTO, James Harrison, Jay Taylorson, our VP of Applications, as well as Jose Pozo, who is our Head of Core Development. To kick off the show, we're joined by James Harrison for a company update.
Thank you, Martin, and hello everybody, and a warm welcome to this month's Genesis Expo, our second tech-focused expo this year. As always, we really appreciate everyone joining the expos, whether joining us live or you are watching us on demand. In today's expo, we're going to be drilling into two significant areas of the Genesis platform technology, highlighting the power that each of these bring. Also, we're delighted to have Peter Best from Chinafic appearing in today's show, and their story is a fascinating one, which they'll share with you later. And of course, we're honored to be their tech partner on this amazing journey. I'd also like to reiterate the fantastic news that we announced last month with our Series B investment from an incredible set of new investors that are namely Accel, Google Ventures, and Salesforce Ventures, who join our current list of amazing investors, Citibank, Illuminate Financial, and Tribeca Early Stage Partners. We're tremendously excited about this investment, and from a technology perspective, it's going to enable us to make significant enhancements across the entire platform, some of the areas we're going to be covering today. The purpose of the Genesis LCAP is to enable robust, secure, and scalable financial markets applications to be developed and enhanced rapidly and cost-effectively. The platform is being built for performance and the complex use cases that only exist within financial markets. And the platform is a combination of high-performance core application infrastructure, feature-rich business components, and fully integrated DevOps tooling, all built and supported by our highly talented and experienced teams across Europe, the US, and Brazil. And today, we're going to be going into further detail on two key areas of the Genesis platform technology. The first of these is how we compose applications using the latest generation web components-based UI. You may remember in the February Expo, we discussed at length the design system behind the web UI and showed the web component library as it is made available to application developers within Storybook. We didn't, however, show you how those components can be easily snapped together and built into a real-life application UI. That composition process is what we're going to be showing you today, taking some simple, basic examples to best illustrate how those work. Genesis is a low-code platform, and as you will see today, there is very little code required to build the UI. But I want to highlight that we are also invested in this becoming a more no-code development experience as well. The idea behind the no-code tooling is that team members who don't have the deep development skills, maybe who are BAs or business users, can easily contribute just as much into building those applications. It's not just about broadening the number of people and reducing the dependence on development skills, it's much more about improving efficiency, as it's naturally quicker and more productive to use no-code tooling during the application build, which is what we'll show you today. As well as efficiency using no-code, it is also a way to increase consistency across applications, making them much easier to support and far easier for developers to move between application projects. Genesis is pushing the no-code tooling across the entire platform with a primary focus on the areas where it gives the biggest benefit. The Genesis no-code tooling creates the same metadata and configuration outputs as the low-code tooling, which includes schema and view design, workflow and state modeling, consolidation and aggregation, and much more. Thus meaning you can build the more straightforward parts of the application with no-code and then extend and enhance the application with greater flexibility than the low-code tooling brings. This year's platform investment is very much geared around increasing the coverage of the no-code tooling, making all parts of the Genesis platform accessible through no-code. We are, however, not going to be taking away the power and flexibility offered by the low-code tooling, and we will always offer pro-code for the hardcore developer experience, allowing developers to drop into code as required. Today's session covering the composing of web UIs will be presented by Jay Taylorson, our VP of Application Development, whose team is responsible for delivering and supporting all Genesis applications. In today's second technical session, we're going to be taking a look at the high-performance data persistence within the Genesis platform. The Genesis platform makes full use of state-of-the-art in-memory NoSQL database technologies that don't suffer from the performance challenges experienced with more traditional databases. What you'll see in today's session is the great innovation that has been done in this area that allows developers to get the enormous power and performance benefits that come with this technology, whilst at the same time saving them the technical and usability challenges that come with them, giving you the best of both worlds. And this is just another example of how the Genesis platform solves challenges at the application infrastructure level, leaving the application development teams to focus 100% on business functional requirements. And this session will be presented by Jose Pozo, our Head of Core Engineering. We are tremendously excited about these and other investments, and it's with great pride to be able to share these with you today. And I hope you will be similarly excited when you see the power that these bring. Anyway, that's about all from me, other than to say a big thank you for taking the time to join us today. And I'd like to now hand you back to Martin. So thanks, everybody.
Fantastic. Thank you, James. I'm delighted to now be joined by part of our engineering team, Jay Taylorson, VP of Application Development. So Jay, do you want to give our audience a quick introduction into what you'll be demoing for us today?
Sure, Martin, and thank you for having me on today's show. So I'll be leading our audience through an exploration of how simple and quick it is to compose user interfaces on the Genesis low-code application platform using web components. Web UI is a key element of the Genesis platform. The Web UI takes a similar approach to the rest of the platform, in as much as UIs are assembled from standard building blocks, or Lego bricks, to radically speed up the application build process. In the Web UI layer, these Lego bricks are web components. In the February event, my colleague Aaron Mendez described two key elements of the Web UI layer. Firstly, the design system and language, and secondly, the web components themselves. You may want to watch that presentation back as it sets the scene for this session. In today's session, we want to show the third aspect, how web components are composed into UIs as part of an application project. Actually, we're going to show you two methods for doing this, beginning with the low-code tooling available to achieve application UI composition, and then the no-code tooling that's also available. In general, the low-code method offers more flexibility, features, and power. However, as you'll see, the no-code tool is also pretty capable. This combination allows the possibility to start an application project using the speed and simplicity of the no-code approach, and then further extend and adapt application UI features using low-code tools. The two approaches can be used in combination. Now I'd like to demonstrate how simple and straightforward it is to compose a UI in low-code using JavaScript JSX. We're going to create a page called FX Orders. This is the Visual Studio Code IDE. On the left-hand side, we have a file navigator. If we drill down into the app root, we see the skeleton code for a starter project on the right-hand side under app root. This code is just defining the home page. Here is the home page in a browser. Now we're going to add a grid. To instantiate this grid, I just need to define it and give it a name, in this case, orders, and connect it to a server data server, all FX orders. I also need to add a root in the app root, FX orders, to create a new page. That's all we need. Now the grid is running and receiving real-time data from the server. By default, all of the columns are displayed, which makes it a bit harder to see what's going on. So let's take this a bit further. Here, I'm going to disable the all columns and just select some specific columns to show. We're also adding renderers for buy, sell, and order status. We're also adding a couple of column formatters for date and number formatting. All the basic styling has been inherited from the component library. All the core grids features like columns, choosers, ordering, filtering and sorting are here as standard too. Now let's add a second grid on the same page, FX Trades. To do that, I just need to add a vertical splitter component and then configure the second grid in the same way as the first. I've put the FX Trades grid in slot 2 of the splitter and also chosen a smaller number of fields so we can see the resulting data more easily. Now let's implement some context tracking between the order grid and the trades grid. To do that just needs a couple more lines of configuration. The first is to pick up the order ID from the row clicked event and put that into a state variable. Then add a filter criteria to the trades grid to link it to the selected order. Now let's show an example of a simple data visualization. FX order consolidated by currency pair. To do this, we've added a further horizontal splitter and a few lines of JSX to select and configure a pie chart, plus link that to a data source on the server. Now let's show an example of a dialog which actions a business event on the server. Firstly, I adjust the splitter to make space for a button to open the dialog. Then add a couple of lines to configure GUI dialog and link that to the insert order event on the server. This gives us the following dialog. This has been auto-built using the server metadata. Mandatory and optional fields are all displayed, no coding required. Let's give it a try to enter an order. As you can see, the pick lists for the enumerated type have also been pre-populated from the server metadata. The order is successfully entered. Hopefully you're getting the idea about how straightforward it is to compose a UI and connect it to the server. In just a few minutes, with a few lines of code, we've been able to make a good start on composing a UI. Of course, beyond these basics, we will choose to enhance features to improve the UX. The flexibility and power to do that exists in this platform. What we've just been looking at is the low-code environment for composing a UI. There is also no-code tooling available to perform this composition. The tool is called Genesis Studio Composer. For those who don't want to write configuration in HTML at all, such as business analysts and business users, then this tooling can be used to build simple UIs in their entirety. If we wanted to, project teams can use the no-code tooling to build an initial UI that can then be extended and polished in the low-code environment we were just looking at. So let's build the same UI as before, but this time with no code. Here is the app. Here is the page preview, just showing the home page. First, let's add a new page. Now let's put a grid on the page and link it to a server data source, all FX orders. As before, let's reduce the number of columns to make it clearer to see. At the same time, adding some cell rendering. To add another grid, we first add a splitter and assign the order grid in the first slot. Now adding a second grid for FX Trades, again with a subset of the fields so we can see what's happening. And now we can put in the context linking subscription, creating a variable and linking the filtering to that variable. Now for the chart, we need another vertical splitter. And now the pie chart. We're charting currency pair versus amount. The final step is the addition of a dialog. First of all, adding a button and a Place New Order. Now adding a dialog to this button and connecting this to the new FX order event. Here is the resulting dialog. It is operational, allowing us to add a new order. As you can see, it's very quick and straightforward to compose a UI with the Genesis Studio Composer. We've composed the same simple UI elements, but this time with the no-code tooling. This session has been about explaining how simple and quick it is to compose UIs on the Genesis low-code application platform. We've shown low-code and no-code tooling we can use to achieve this. In both cases, the UI composition utilizes the web components available that make up the building blocks in the Genesis UI. The examples we've shown here are simple, but the environments include full flexibility to refine and extend the configuration to achieve more complex UX. Now, back over to you, Martin.
Wow, thank you, Jay. Excellent explanation of how web components are leveraged in our Genesis low-code platform to compose user interfaces. Next up, I'm joined by Head of Core Development, Jose Pozo, to introduce the Genesis database APIs and the power of high-performance data persistence. Welcome, Jose.
Hi, Martin. Thanks for having me on the show. Let's dive right in. The Genesis low-code application platform embodies a real-time event-driven architecture. The platform is designed to support applications that are capable of sustaining throughputs in the range of thousands of business events per second. These business events usually apply changes to the data stored in the system. Some examples are inserts and/or updates to trades, orders, positions, deals, and reevaluations. All of these changes can be modeled as data entities that need to be persisted and also able to be recovered with absolute data integrity. Business data storage is a central requirement for financial market applications. And of course, there are other types of data, such as market data and transient analytics, that can be recalculated rapidly. Those don't generally need the same level of persistence and recovery. But in this session, we're going to focus on the persistent storage of business events and reference data. Everyone who's been around real-time event-driven systems will know that traditional relational SQL databases don't have the throughput and latency characteristics necessary for this purpose. Additionally, these database systems have trouble scaling horizontally and struggle to meet the demands of the ever-increasing needs for data processing worldwide. As a response to these limitations, there was a huge amount of innovation and investment around NoSQL database technology in the 2010s. Most NoSQL databases focus on storing key value pairs, with the value being unstructured data in many cases. Storing data this way is very light, flexible, and fast. Due to the simplicity and flexibility of this approach, NoSQL technology is also capable of storing and retrieving a far wider set of data types than SQL technology, as custom types are easy to create. As NoSQL databases took off, technology innovators in the general computing sphere set about developing and exploiting it across many fields, including mass-market internet applications. These applications face user bases into the tens or even hundreds of millions of users, all seeking to order their toothpaste on Amazon Prime. Such large user bases drive exceptionally high peak throughput requirements, and designers of the most advanced NoSQL databases responded to that by including in-memory operations and horizontal scaling across parallel hubs. When we designed the Genesis platform architecture, we were aware of this trend in database technology and the potential it offers for financial markets. In fact, NoSQL technology started creeping into financial markets maybe a decade ago, with MongoDB and Cassandra being the most prominent examples. But there was a problem. Financial markets business data sits very well on relational database structures. For example, financial market applications naturally work with a relational structure, say, between counterparty and instrument static tables, with trades and orders business dynamic tables. So even where it was necessary to engineer a proprietary in-memory business database to get around the performance challenges of relational database management systems, the same relational constructs were kept intact. For all these reasons, we set about the challenge of harnessing the power of the latest NoSQL in-memory database technology, yet making it as simple for application developers to understand and consume as a relational database. The outcome of that engineering feat is the Genesis Database Abstraction Layer, or Database API, which sits on top of each internal database engine Genesis is compatible with. The Database API is something that we are really pleased with, serves us extremely well, and it is at the very core of the platform, and hence every application that has been built on it. With the Genesis Database API, application developers are getting all the performance and scaling of the latest NoSQL database technology, but it looks and feels just the same as a relational database. In fact, we can also run applications using PostgreSQL, the leading open source SQL database, as the database engine. We do that for the simpler, low-volume applications built on the platform. The database API itself is detached from the different database engine internal implementations. Application developers using the platform don't perceive any difference in the low-code development environment, whether the application is using PostgreSQL or one of the highly performant NoSQL database engines the platform supports. Amazing. So how does the database API layer work? Everything starts with the data schema. Genesis applications are built around schema metadata, tables with fields and relationship between those tables, table indexes, etc. This schema is stored internally as abstract metadata and will be interpreted differently for each database engine. As we explained in the February Expo, the primary mechanism for joining table data is to use view definitions. To interact with the data store, Genesis applications use data access object classes for ease of use. We also provide a light ORM system, so you can interact with type-safe entities rather than generic data containers. These type-safe entities and DAO classes are regenerated every time there's a schema change, like a table or view change. A big advantage of this method is that if a schema change breaks any current application functionality, the errors will be highlighted immediately, and the next application build will capture these errors in compile time. In terms of mapping the data to the database backend, each table and field definition will also generate internal aliases. For example, this will be used to access the key value pairs in our NoSQL databases. The alias size is kept short for better performance, avoiding potential key size limitations of underlying database engines, and also allowing for advanced cloning remapping functionality. As far as functionality goes, the DAO classes generated for individual database tables support all the essential database write operations like insert, modify, upsert, delete, and also read operations like get bulk, get range. Database views are read-only as they do not represent a table entity. And these database operations can be accessed in both synchronous and asynchronous mode to fit the application programming model. Additionally, each of these operations will behave in a contractual way to ensure the behavior is always consistent. This contract remains the same, irrespective of the choice of underlying database engine being used. The DAO classes will call the database API, and this is where the magic happens. The database API maps between the DAO operations and the native APIs of the underlying database engine, whichever engine has been chosen for the specific application. There is a separate plugin adapter for each of the database engines supported on the Genesis platform. The database API has been implemented for 3 database engines so far: Aerospike, FoundationDB, and PostgreSQL. Each one of these database engines shines in different scenarios and therefore can be chosen to better fit application requirements. It is worth mentioning that the Genesis database operations can also harness ACID properties where applicable. For example, entering a trade, updating the order details, and inserting database records in the relevant audit tables can be performed on a null or none basis. However, not all the features of the database API are intrinsically related to the database engines themselves. To achieve inter-process communication, the database API is fully integrated with the internal message bus. Every time there is a data change, the database API posts that update on an internal broadcast message bus so that all other microservices interested in the subject can be updated accordingly. Typically, the data content of each change is stored in the message payload, and so subscribing processes don't necessarily need to read the database themselves when the update is received. The database API also implements intelligent caching. This means that many read operations can access the cache seamlessly when a database read operation is called. This can greatly improve latency and throughput. Finally, it is a common requirement in financial market applications to be able to store a change history, both what changed, when, and by whom. The Genesis Event Handler microservices are integrated with the database API in such a way that they can automatically detect which tables are auditable and perform the audit update transparently, without any effort taken by the developer. Collectively, all these aspects of the Genesis database API, integrated with the underlying database engine capabilities, allow for scalable, resilient, and robust applications to be constructed rapidly and completely solves common difficulties generally found when dealing with financial markets applications data handling. Thanks, Martin. Back over to you.
Great demo, Jose. I can't imagine going back to a time where event-driven architecture was not used to keep everything up to date in real time. Taking a step back from our technical demos, I'd like to hand over the microphone to a new guest in our series, Georgie Barrett, alongside our CEO, Felipe Oliveira, to discuss some exciting plans for our upcoming festivals in June called Now You Can.
Hello and welcome to Now You Can, our festival of low code brought to you by Genesis. My name is Georgie Barrett and I'm delighted to be joined by the hosts of our monthly Expo series, Felipe and Martin. Welcome, guys. Felipe, this isn't your only role there. You're not just a host. Talk me through about what you do at Genesis and also what people can expect at Now You Can Festival.
Hello, Georgie. Really nice to see you and hello to your audience. My name is Felipe Oliveira and my role is to be the Chief Operating Officer at Genesis, but also the interim VP of Marketing. That's my role.
And what can people expect from Now You Can Festival?
So Now You Can is a festival of low code where we're trying to show the empowerment and optimism that low code can bring to the end user. It's about empowering them to build applications using the Genesis platform and be able to solve real problems that they have with speed, agility, and security.
Brilliant stuff. Martin, let me bring you into the conversation. You represent the client side. Talk me through what you do at Genesis and also what you're looking forward to when it comes to the festival.
Hi, Georgie. Hello, everybody. So I am Martin Sriba. I'm the Global Head of Sales and Revenue for Genesis. And what our clients can expect from Now You Can is live interaction with our applications. So there's going to be a demo component showcasing everything we have built in the past and potentially what speak to our development teams of what clients can actually build on the application themselves. And as well as tech demos where we dive into the application and show clients how we actually execute and build local applications on our platform.
Brilliant. So people can get really hands-on with the products.
Correct. We want our clients to interact as much as possible. We want them to get a hands-on feel of how it actually works to be empowered by the platform and build applications with a lower time to market, lower risk, and much quicker than normally.
Brilliant stuff. Felipe, if there's one thing that you want people to take away from the festival, what would that be?
For me, Genesis, if I could ask the audience to take one thing away, is an ask for them not to take anything for granted. I think low code is still an emerging technology, and we position ourselves as being different to the other LCAPs in the marketplace. So I'd welcome everyone to join us and learn how the Genesis LCAP, which is built for financial markets, can help supercharge their IT delivery.
Absolutely. And how about you, Martin? What's the one thing you'd like people to take away from the festival?
Yeah, the key for me and what clients should take away is how we engage with our clients. So number one, we can engage with clients where clients can actually buy applications from us. Number two, clients can actually build custom applications with us and with our help as an extension of their development teams. And thirdly, we can actually sell the platform to our clients, and the clients can actually take ownership and build things by themselves. And I think those 3 points will be key to take away.
Brilliant stuff. Thank you very much, Martin and Felipe. Well, to find out more, please visit the link nowyoucan.genesis.global, and we'll see you there.
Hello, Martin. Thanks for having me. My name's Peter Best, and I'm the founder and CEO of ChinaFIC. We're a trade execution and workflow solution dedicated to international participants in the Chinese capital markets. I'm here to tell you about what we do and why we chose Genesis and their low-code platform to help us to deliver our solution. So who and what is ChinaFIC? At ChinaFIC, we refer to ourselves as a trading platform, a workflow solution, and a regulatory change as a service provider. Let me break that down. The trading platform. We're a dealer to customer, sell side to buy side trading platform, with our initial focus being to support automated access to the Chinese renminbi. That means creating a high performance, easy to use execution platform that brings transparency, price competition, and best execution to foreign institutional investors in China's capital markets. The workflow solution. Given that China's domestic renminbi, the CNY, is a restricted currency, in order to be a trading platform, we also recognize that behind the scenes, we'd need to manage the unique workflow requirements necessary to support that flow. That means validating the fair and reasonable use of the currency via a reconciliation with the underlying financial assets, ensuring that orders and prices are filtered and routed according to users' designated custodians and counterparties, and generating the necessary transaction reports and messaging required to match each participant's needs vis-à-vis the regulation. As such, we also like to call ourselves a trade workflow solution. We have a short video to help explain the problem we're solving with low code.
ChinaFIC was created to solve the cost, risk, regulatory, and workflow issues surrounding international investor access to the Chinese financial markets. By June 2020, the size of the Chinese bond market passed 97 trillion renminbi, making it the second largest bond market in the world, but foreign ownership still below 4%. Several access schemes have been created to manage international investment, iteratively liberalizing access to foreign participants over time. Nonetheless, access is subject to strict rules which create unorthodox workflows, control, and reporting considerations, adding cost and risk to the investment process. ChinaFIC has been building a solution dedicated to China's unique access regulations using Genesis's low-code platform, which is agile, highly scalable, and built for interoperability, making it the perfect solution for financial market firms operating in highly regulated markets. ChinaFIC's first use case has been a solution designed to ease access and increase the use of the domestic Chinese currency for participants on China's Bond Connect access scheme. To the trading desk, the platform behaves like a dealer-to-customer FX trade execution platform, offering RFQ and dedicated streaming capabilities in an automated environment, unlocking competitive access to the Chinese renminbi and demonstrating best execution. Behind the scenes, The platform is managing the regulatory workflow on behalf of all market participants, validating the fair and reasonable use of the currency, dynamically routing orders to optimize pricing and fills based on individual funds, their custodian and their designated FX market makers, and generating transaction reports to demonstrate regulatory compliance to the access scheme requirements on behalf of all participants, asset managers, banks, and custodians. China FIC has used Genesis's LCAP to build a high-performance trading platform, as well as a trade management and reporting tool to help users gain a competitive advantage in China's evolving regulatory landscape, filling the gaps left by traditional IT and monolithic systems currently prevalent across financial institutions. China FIC plans to continue its journey with Genesis to extend its platform to manage other access schemes, financial instruments, and provide more solutions across trade management and settlement.
And lastly, but by no means least, we refer to ourselves as a regulatory change as a service provider. One thing that we can be certain of is that access conditions to China will continue to adapt and change in the coming years, even months. We wanted to be the piece of infrastructure that sits between the West and China and manages the impact of all that reg change on workflow on behalf of all our users. In other words, we make the necessary changes to our platform to help users remain compliant, to take advantage of the evolutions in the regulation, and to help participation in China's financial markets to scale smoothly. And we do all this so that our users don't have to. For those not already aware, China's bond and equity markets are already the second largest in the world after the US. But foreign participation in those markets is less than 5% of the market share, and that is after very rapid growth over the last few years. One of the reasons for this is that access is not always straightforward. China has been exercising a lot of thought and caution when it comes to opening up its markets, creating what are known as access schemes, which are in effect unique regulatory environments which in turn have their own unique execution and settlement rules and attendant workflows. The access schemes are then thoughtfully measured and observed, market feedback is taken into account, and over time the rules are evolved and liberalized. From a regulatory and market impact perspective, this is an incredibly sensible thing to do. But for a market participant, this creates that issue of frequent regulatory change I just referred to. Hence the requirement for China FIC to have a scalable, flexible environment capable of quickly and safely adapting to the rule changes on behalf of all participants in the market. Agility, high performance, scalability, resilience, and a wide range of functions and functionality. Okay, so every company will probably tell you that they're looking for these things in a technology partner. But as I'm sure you can appreciate, when we said we were looking for these things, we really meant it. Agility and flexibility. We knew that we would constantly be evolving and adapting. It was central to our business plan to ensure that we could change and evolve rapidly and efficiently as the access requirements to China would be changing, and we needed to be able to prove to our users that we were perfectly placed to deliver on that. Performance and scalability. We wanted to be a trade execution platform, in FX no less, so we also knew that we needed a platform that would be high performance and capable of scaling in orders, participants, speed, even new trading protocols, as international participation in China's markets continues to grow and develop. Functions and functionality. And we knew that we needed a partner capable of delivering a wide array of functions and functionality. As we just laid out, we weren't going to be just a trading platform. We needed a partner that could help us to deliver all those functions on the trade workflow side: reconciliations, transaction reporting, data mapping, multiple integrations, and whatever other requirements that may come our way. And of course, we didn't want to pay for someone to learn all of this. We wanted to lean on existing competencies in order to deliver this efficiently and effectively. Initially, we went to market, visiting all the firms we'd worked with in the past or that our relationship networks could highly recommend. Extremely good firms, extremely highly rated, but it was the common story of, we can help you build a proof of concept, something you can use to demonstrate to users. It'll cost you this, but in time we'll most likely have to throw it all away and rebuild something more fit for purpose. I'd learnt about low-code back in 2016, albeit something that was being pioneered by Amazon and on the West Coast. And I knew that if we could find the right framework, this would be ideal for our needs. The attraction of low-code was obvious. We could build quickly, and of course, as most of these components had already been built, this ought to be much cheaper, less effort, less cost. And more than that, we could continue to develop and iterate super quickly without having to throw everything away. Or at least, if we were to decide to change and replace, we weren't trapped by the pressure of sunken time and costs. We could simply switch up and move on. Further embedded in this old school build and replace model of development is the notion of technical debt. As requirements grow and usage scales, systems become harder to manage. It's easy to say, we don't want that, but unless you're working in a scalable environment like the cloud, on a platform that is striving for constant innovation and improvement, it's hard to think of how you can realistically manage this. And there was the question of development and control. As a startup, we decided that our priorities would be to focus on the problem statements, the regulation, the solution use cases, the product. We neither had the money nor the time to staff up and build ourselves. But we don't expect things to always be that way. With a low-code platform, over time we intend to move more and more of our own product development in-house, leaving the low-code platform provider to focus on expanding their framework and keeping it up to date and best in class. But we weren't sure we were going to find a suitable low-code platform for the financial markets. That is, until we were introduced to Genesys. And to this extent, serendipity played a role. We wanted to find a low-code platform, but only one that was fit for our purposes. That meant it had to be fit for our financial markets needs, especially as a trade execution platform, but it also needed to have the same level of ambition to match ours. We knew that our main center of activities would be based in Asia, so we needed a partner that would be prepared themselves to expand into Asia, prepared to manage hosting in the region, and to support the framework in real time for China's market calendar and trading hours. We also knew that as a trading platform, we would be required to seek regulatory licenses across a wide number of jurisdictions. We needed a low-code vendor that was prepared to be part of our regulatory applications, that we could cite, pen test, and prove was up to the levels of IT and cybersecurity required to meet the expectations and needs of both the regulators and our users. A platform that we expect and hope will be treated as a critical piece of trading infrastructure for one of the most important marketplaces in the world. So of course we had a high bar to manage. Needless to say, I wouldn't be here today if Genesys had not been able to prove to us that they had the willingness and ability to match our ambitions. For those out there in financial markets considering a low-code platform, whether as a startup or a well-established institution, ChinaFIC is happy to vouch for Genesys. Indeed, we're proud to be part of their journey, as I know they are of ours.
Thank you, Peter. That was great. Plenty to unpack there, so let's jump right into the Q&A. Now, you focused on three key tenets in your keynotes: execution capabilities, workflow, as well as regulatory change as a service. How about we drill into that a little bit more? What exactly do you mean by that statement?
So, funnily enough, regulatory change as a service was really the original inspiration for ChinaFIC. Before I'd even come across the FX use case that we chose to attack, what I knew, and this goes back to my time as a chief operating officer for some heavily regulated entities. And back then, we were going through a lot of regulatory change. This was 2013, 2014, 2015, that sort of time scale. And change is always a challenge. Technical change, process change, there's always a lot of work to do. But when you're a regulated entity, there's just added complexity. So as a regulated entity, you're constantly thinking about the need to document any process, to measure it for risk, to roll those risk measurements up into your capital adequacy assessment. And it just means that on top of everything else when it comes to change, regulatory change that involves regulation is super slow and super challenging. So when we founded ChinaFIC, I'd started to read about China's opening up, the different access schemes. And I just thought, there's a ton of regulatory change to manage here. And what I would have always wanted was a bit of infrastructure that sat between the systems that I'd already built and managed and evaluated when it comes to risk, and the regulation. And I wanted something that managed that regulatory change on behalf of me as a regulated entity, so that I didn't have to go through and make all that hard regulatory change happen. And so that's why we're calling it regulatory change as a service. There's many access schemes to enter China. Those access schemes are all developing, they're all changing all the time. And a common theme would be having to manage regulatory change. And we wanted to do that so that individual participants didn't have to do that individually, that we would do it on behalf of everybody, and that we would take all that change risk on, so that our users could be relatively comfortable with the change that was going on in the markets, and they could adapt and manage that change and take advantage of it, quite frankly, quickly.
Great. No, that's perfect feedback. Now, how about you mentioned you actually learned about LCAP a while back, and it sort of intrigued your focus in terms of what you could do with that kind of application, where you don't need to worry about technical debt moving forward if you had to do a lot of changes to the application. So speak about a little bit about that. How did you get to know LCAP before you actually engage with Genesis?
So funnily enough, that goes back to a different role I had. It was one of head of strategy. And back in 2016, I was head of strategy across a bunch of fintech businesses. And we were looking to consolidate the core technology behind the different businesses, and also to help try and remove a lot of the technical debt. And it was at that point that we had a terrific CTO that had spent the previous years working on the West Coast. And he came in and he educated us all on low code way back then. And we learned about Amazon was really the example that we studied, and we learned about their 2 pizza teams, for each function, the microservices, the micro front ends, the use of APIs to bring it all together, and therefore the easy interoperability that brings. And at that time, we were thinking of having to build it ourselves, because there was no low-code platform that was capable of delivering the functions and functionality we needed for financial markets. But what it meant was 3 years later, when I was going out to market to look for a solutions provider, I had my hopes and dreams set on trying to find a low-code platform. But that wasn't what I found initially. I mean, as I said in my speech, we went to the places where we had relationships first, and so it took a little while to come across Genesis. But obviously, we're very pleased that we did.
No, that's great. That's good background. So the other thing I would, you mentioned was, at some point you have the ambition to bring back development in-house. Now, obviously, there's a lot of changes, a lot of ambiguity about regulations that you currently are seeing in the Chinese markets. What sort of prompted you to think that you needed an application that you could take on moving forward if something needed to be changed?
Well, I think it's just a general kind of desire that one always wants to have control. And again, as I said in my keynote, we knew that as effectively a startup, we didn't have the time or the resources to bring in a whole bunch of developers and build stuff from scratch. But that didn't mean that we wanted to give away too much control over the product and the build. And the fantastic thing about the LCAP model and the Genesis model is the opportunity to really take ownership of those use cases and to build one's own products on the Genesis framework. And that's definitely something that we signed up for when we signed up with Genesis, and it's something that we're really looking forward to as we scale our business to take more and more of that control in-house. Because I think, like many, you don't really understand a problem until you really are part of the development of that solution. And that's the fantastic thing about LCAP. It allows you to really take ownership, even from that kind of development point of view, but in an incredibly cost-effective, safe, and easy-to-build way.
That's great, Peter. Lastly, I would say, a lot of conversation, a lot of comments about regulations. When are you seeing China FIC as a company being, regulated within China? How do you see that, the timing of that, and potentially how LCAP could help you to actually accomplish that?
So actually getting regulatory approval to operate in China is still a little bit of an unknown. It will be a path that we'll be steering by ourselves. It's not happened before as a platform such as ourselves to be regulated within China. But due to the nature of the schemes, some of these access schemes that I mentioned, they're offshore, and therefore initially, we've received a legal opinion. Initially, we don't need specific China regulation or regulation from the Chinese regulators, I should say, approval from the Chinese regulators to operate our platform when we're servicing some of these offshore schemes. But we do, of course, need the permissions of all the other jurisdictions to operate a trade execution platform. So we've already begun the process of developing the necessary documentation, processes, the measurement of risks, the capital assessments and the risk assessments required to make our applications in other jurisdictions like Hong Kong and Singapore, Europe and the US.
No, that's great. And obviously you're thinking going with an LCAP will let you do that quicker, faster, and with lower risk. So
exactly.
Great to hear. Great to hear, Peter. Thank you very much for joining our show.
Yeah, good to be here.
Thank you, Peter. It seems you're running out of time, so I'd like to take this moment to say thank you again for a fantastic keynote and insight into how you're using low-code to unlock competition in a rigorous regulatory landscape. To round off, I'd like to invite Jose Pozo back to the stage for a group Q&A. So this has been a great show. It's great to be here with Peter and Jose. So let's ask a couple of questions. So Peter, you talked to us about China FIC and regulatory change as a service and how you leverage LCAP to help you in that regard. For the rest of 2021, what are your plans moving forward?
So we have lots of work to do. So we're in the middle of a whole bunch of regulatory license applications across many jurisdictions. We are in discussion with lots of users where we're taking feedback and we're building more functionality. We're about to initiate some user working groups that we'd love people to come and participate in to give us user feedback around functionality and integration requirements. And ultimately, we're looking to soft launch the platform before the end of the year with a big, proper kind of full go live the very beginning of 2022.
That's great. What is the most frequently asked questions by your prospects, Peter?
So I guess the question we hear all the time is, can we do more? Can we cover more access schemes? Can we cover more instruments? Can we cover more regulation, more jurisdictions? And the answer is we're working on all of those things all the time. And we're always trying to do more, but it's also important that we do the things that we do really well. And often I end up saying, how do you eat an elephant? The answer is one piece at a time. So we're looking to really focus on our first use case and master that.
That's great. That's awesome. Now to you, Jose, we heard you speak about the Genesis platform and being also microservices based specifically. Can you elaborate a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a really good question, Martin. So basically, we do say microservices based because one of the tenets of microservices design is that each service should contain its own business data store. And obviously, this allows for complete independence between microservices, also beta data store suitability for each functional component. But in our opinion, this approach might not make sense for general financial market applications. And this is because these process financial instruments and customer transactions, and you need data integrity, audit, compliance. We believe that it makes sense to have a central shared data repository where you can have all your static and business dynamic transaction data, one repository where all microservices can interact with as a single source of truth, really. Additionally, we can still use specialized data stores for each microservice where relevant, but it's not a mandatory requirement for our architecture solution.
Great. That's a great background on that specific important topic. So now the question for both of you: if you'd like to leave our audience with one key takeaway, what would it be? Peter?
So from my point of view, well, the self-serving answer is if you're a financial market participant interested in China, please come talk to us. And from a more practical and more honorable response is, if you are a financial institution looking at developing or building something, replacing something, any change process, I'd strongly encourage you to take an LCAP platform very seriously. And I think you should go and talk to Genesys.
That's great. And Jose?
Right. So from my point of view, LCAPs are here to stay. As this has been the topic of all of our expos. And I believe the Genesys LCAP is unique in its approach. I think the way we do things is nothing like other competitors. And obviously, I'm not saying this just because. I mean, I do believe the way we have architecture, our database API and other internal APIs is very flexible, allows us to use many different database engines, and it's also extendable. In the future, we could add new technology and we can grow the platform over time. We're not locked down with a particular vendor, and we can make sure we grow to the expectations of an ever-evolving industry.
This is great. Thank you guys very much. And that is all for our show for today. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Martin.
Thank you. Thank you.